All right, Israel, how are you doing today?
Good.
All right. Let's get everybody hit record. Are we recording?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna just mash the button here if that's okay. Put it right here.
Okay. Good afternoon, Israel. I'm just going to introduce everybody again. I think you know everybody in the room, but this is Special Agent Payne from the FBI, Frank Russo from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Officer Bell from the Anchorage Police Department, Detective Dahl from the Anchorage Police Department, and I'm Kevin Felders from the U.S. Attorney's Office. You're here today with Mr. Kurtner, and you've been advised of your rights several times, is that correct?
Yes.
Including by the judge at your arraignment?
Yep.
I want to advise you again specifically that you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say today can and will be used against you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree to waive those rights, and do you want to talk to us?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and dial up a few other people who are working with us.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay. No? I thought it was okay.
Hello.
Okay.
Can you put that on mute?
Done.
Thanks.
Thank you. Israel, when we spoke on Friday, you told us that you killed Samantha Koenig, is that right?
Yes.
And then you told us that there were some other things that you'd like to tell us about that, and specifically, you were going to wait to another session for that.
That's right.
Okay. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So we're here today, and we're going to talk to you about that. Okay?
All right.
Okay. Is there a place that you'd like to begin, or is there?
Well, you're going to get the abridged version.
What does that mean?
I'm going to leave out some stuff.
And what is
There's
that?
too many people in here. So,
Too many people.
yeah.
Okay, so what is that about?
There being too many people. Some of the stuff is very personal to me.
Sure, understand.
And yeah, hard to describe, but I don't feel comfortable with telling it to a lot of people. So it's up to you. I mean, if you want the abridged version, you can do that. I mean, you'll still get all the same information, but
Well, why don't we do this? Since we don't know where we're headed, I don't know where we're headed, Israel. Only you know that, right? So let's start, and we'll see where we end up, okay?
all right.
I kind of feel like I should say something, but I'm coming in kind of in the middle of the baseball game here, so I'm not really sure where to start. I'm here.
You heard the last interview?
I did, although I got to say that the relay, I was out of state, and so the relay was really bad. It sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher, most of it, wah, 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 wah. So most of it I didn't understand, and some of it I did, and I'm not really sure if you want me to ask you questions or if you...
If you have questions, that's fine.
Okay. Well, the first question I have, does it really have anything to do specifically with Samantha? It has more to do with... Can I start out there?
Yeah.
Okay. I've not talked with you about this specifically, so it's kind of an impression I got when we spoke in Texas. And it might be completely wrong, and if I'm completely off base, just tell me. But I got the distinct impression that you really didn't want to be raised by your mom. And that I talked to you, and then the next day, after your initial hearing, I got a chance to speak to your mom. And she didn't say anything. Again, it was just an impression I got, but I think I know a little bit about why you wouldn't want to be raised by your mom.
Very
Is
perceptive.
that something that is that something you're concerned about? Is that something that...
Not anymore.
Okay. So you're okay with that?
She won't be there for long.
Okay. All right. So you've taken steps. We don't need to talk about that, and I'm not going to kind of...
No, we've talked about that. It's fine.
Okay, sure. Okay. So so I won't waste any more time about it. Like I said, I kind of feel like I'm coming in the middle of the game, like I'm a substitute hitter here, and I don't really know where you guys left off and why there were some things that you wanted to speak to only me about. So I don't know what questions to ask.
You don't have to ask. Like I say, I'll give you a detailed account of everything that happened. If you want a blow-by-blow account, then I won't do it. Like what I was thinking or what was said between her and I, that stuff stays with me unless there's fewer people in this room.
How many few people?
At least your attorney has to stay.
Oh, no, let's
Let's just start with the abridged version, and then we can go.
Well, Israel, why don't you answer that question? What are you talking about?
Well, before I go into anything, one thing I'm concerned about is some of the details, regardless of which version I tell you, are going to be very graphic, and I don't want to hear about them being on the media. I assume Rich already talked to you about that. I don't imagine that you are going to want them on the media either. At least I can't imagine why. So, I'm assuming that this video is just for your own review, or
And you
someone
got to
else's
talk to
review.
you got to talk to me about that because I'm the lawyer on the case. So, go ahead.
Well, those are my concerns. I'm not trying to salvage my own reputation at this point. I'm trying to spare my family and people who know me the depth of, I guess you could say, the double life I have.
Understood.
Obviously, like I say, they're going to know the bottom line.
Right.
And all the other details, if you expect me to say anything at any point in the future about anything else, whether it's this or anything, then that's going to hinge directly on what I perceive that you're portraying to the media.
About the details.
Yes.
Okay, well, here's what we've done so far. Let me tell you what we've done so far, Israel. And I think it's lived up to what you requested. We haven't told anybody what you told us the other day. And it hasn't been on the news. I'm sure you know that. The only coverage that I saw was that they had to take a few things from his house, and they were very respectful about that. She agreed. We talked to her attorney. It was all done very professionally, and it was done on my orders that way. So I understand what you're saying. I think you know that people are going to hear about you moving forward. We're not out there right now telling people what you said, but I think we all know that people will hear about it.
You can't keep the facts of what happened, but you can keep things that I said, that I say to you, confidential.
We can, look, we're not out here to horrify anybody. We have respect for the public. I think that's what you're saying, right? They don't need to hear all the details.
Well, that's my concern, is that the media actually likes that stuff, and the public does too,
Right.
whether you want to believe it or not. There's a lot of people who want to hear all that.
I understand, and we're not doing this to please the media. We're fact finders, is what we are. And
Right.
obviously the public will know the ultimate facts and some of the things you did.
Right.
They don't need to know all those details.
I get what you're saying. People are voyeurs. People want to know the dirty little details. And throughout the last 8 or 9 weeks, we've had people constantly banging down our door. And this has been one of the most controlled releases of information that this case, more so than any other case that's ever been worked by the Anchorage Police Department, we've done a better job of controlling outflow of information, and we will continue to do so. There's no reason for us to put the dirty little details of anything about Samantha's death in the newspaper. There is also no reason for us to tell her father or anybody else the dirty little details. Nothing that can get back to her family. The only people that need to know it are the investigators, you already know it, the attorneys, and eventually the judge. So I have no intention of releasing any details because it is only going to harm people. It's not going to help anybody. It's going to satisfy a sick curiosity, and I'm not interested in that.
Okay.
Well, we're getting pounded for it. I mean, you've seen some of the. We're getting pounded for not releasing information, and we have thick skin. That's why we do the job we do, and we don't care what people say about us.
No one's heard anything about the lake yet.
Right. So that's
Is that wrapped up?
No.
I can't say it's wrapped up yet, but we're keeping it pretty low key.
All right.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we? What we asked you last time was, what happened to Samantha once you brought her back to your house?
All right. So I left off. Went to the ATM, and after I had checked the card and made sure it was the right PIN number, I went back to the house, and by then it was getting pretty late, and I had already had a foam mat on top of a 9x12 tarp laid out on the shed, and she was sitting on a bucket, 5-gallon bucket in the shed, and I had a piece of rope. It was around her neck, and I had it screwed to the wall. Some of those screws that were in there were some big fender washers, and I would tie a knot in the rope and screw it into the frame on the shed, and that's how I held her there, so she couldn't move. And
Was she cooperative with you
Yeah.
throughout this while you were doing this?
yeah, no, the whole time I told her that I made it sound like it was going to be a quick exchange as far as a ransom of some kind, and that was the impression she was under.
So if she did what you told her to, it was her impression that you would eventually let her go, and
That's what she was saying. I never actually told her that.
Gotcha. She was kind of looking to you to kind of confirm that.
I wasn't. I wasn't aggressive towards her at all. I tried to, I would ask her what she would need. Like, I'd let her smoke her cigarettes and brought her some water. And had the radio on in the shed up fairly loud, just in case she decided to start screaming or something. And the shed, at the time, you open the door, and immediately to the right, for the whole length of the shed, about 2 feet out and all the way to the ceiling, were built-in cabinets, 2 levels.
Did they have doors on them?
Yep, they had sliding doors, and originally was set up to be a grow room, and that's why there's holes in the floor. There was like lots of extra wiring and plumbing and fans I had in that shed originally, but I lost interest and just quit doing it a while ago. And so there were those cabinets, so there wasn't really much room in the shed at the time. There was the floor in there was only about floor space was only about 3 feet wide by the length of the shed. And she was sitting at the back, and there was a shelf above her head. It's just like a small shelf that was supported by a closet shelf support, 12 inches wide, with the hook for the closet rod in the front. And like I say, on the floor there was a tarp and a foam mat and a sleeping, or not a sleeping bag really, but like a fleece sleeping bag of sorts.
Did you put the tarp down to catch any blood?
No, just to keep anything from her transferring to the shed.
Gotcha.
Well, you put the foam mat and
That stuff was all put down ahead of time, probably a day or two before.
in anticipation of bringing someone in.
I was thinking about it. I didn't have a specific plan in mind.
And I may have missed this on the first, but did you have a specific person in mind? Did you
No.
know?
I had that location in mind just because of where it was and the fact that they were open late and the fact that I had staked it out maybe, I don't remember how long before, a couple days it seems like. I walked by and it looked like there was only one person working there and there weren't a lot of cars around, so it was in the back of my mind. I didn't really know for sure that I was going to do anything. I thought maybe I might just rob that place.
Why did you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
Why did you park at the Home Depot parking lot instead of in the neighborhood back behind the coffee shop? It's kind of darker, and it, you know.
I don't know. Good question. I guess I didn't think the video cameras were that good. I remember seeing the IHOP camera, and I remember thinking that thing looks like it's 20 years old. It probably doesn't even record anymore. But I wasn't really worried about the video because I had my face covered the whole time, and I think I had the front license plate off my truck removed, and the back license plate is almost always covered with snow. The truck didn't look anything like it normally does, and
Well, and I can tell you there's 725 Chevy trucks that are very similar, incredibly similar to yours in the age pool.
it's the most common truck in Anchorage. So the windshield repair people told me. Anyway, so yeah, that's. I did think about parking back in the neighborhoods, but there was so much snow, there wasn't a lot of places to park, and I was worried. I was more worried about having someone hit my truck and having it turn into a big thing, or getting a traffic ticket, or
Right.
whatever. So, and there were other places around town that I was looking at too.
Where else around town? Can you
I
tell
was
me?
looking at Huffman area because that was there's several coffee stands along that road. And, they stay open late too. There's not very many people around, and there was several public areas where I could have parked. So I was looking at that area too. But honestly, it was kind of like a spur of the moment thing. The way it happened, when I robbed her, she was, very cooperative, and I don't know. I just even, I guess you could say, against my judgment, I just kept going with it, even though I had already told myself that if whoever was there didn't have a car, then I wasn't going to do anything more than rob them and tie them up. And but there was something about her, like the way she reacted, that kind of made me want to just keep going with it. And plus, like I said, I had my police scanner in my ear, and it seems like there was something going on the east side, so I knew most of the police would be over there, and I thought I was just on a real adrenaline rush. I thought I could just walk her right down the street and nobody, and I had never done anything that brazen before, and I thought, it was just a really real adrenaline rush, and was determined at that point that it was going to happen, regardless of what I had to do. And
Because that's a good word. The whole thing seemed very brazen, and that was one of the things that kind of has confused me all along, is how brazen the whole thing was, and how kind of how overt the whole thing was, like almost like a bank robbery, where it was just like, I'm going to walk up and do this. And it's not like Tudor is a small road. Tudor is like a pretty main thoroughfare in Anchorage, so...
my thought was that people walk down that street all the time, and in a way, if it's the fact that it was busy and there were people around, and I was right, I passed lots of people. Even when we were walking, it seems like I passed a person who was walking. And every time someone was close, I would just take the gun and like push it against her, so she knew that I knew what she was thinking, and that became part of it, I guess.
Did she try to get away or fall
Yeah.
to the ground, or she did?
She tried to get away on Tudor. We were only about 100 feet from the coffee stand, maybe 200 feet.
Weren't you carrying her purse too?
Yep.
How were you holding the purse in to go?
I put, I picked up that camera as we were leaving, and made some comment that it was my lucky day, and had the purse and the camera by the straps in one hand, and had my arm around her with the other. Had my other arm around her, my right arm, and I had the gun in my right hand, but I didn't have it ready to fire. I just had it. I was holding it around the cylinder and the trigger guard, but I had the barrel up, so she would think I had it ready to fire. And I just told her to act like she was my girlfriend and just act like maybe she was a little bit drunk or something, and I was helping her. And after that first time she tried to get away, I tackled her. After that, she knew I was serious, and after that, she didn't give me any problems.
Gotcha. So the whole entire time after that, she was compliant, she was cooperative, and she kind of like knew you meant business. After
Yeah.
that.
You mentioned the omen with finding the camera. What did you mean? It was just lucky that you found it?
Yeah.
Did it have some meaning to you?
No, it's just, not every day you find like a $200 or $300 camera laying on the ground. So
Did you use the camera after you found it?
no,
That was the one that we found in one of the sheds.
it was in my trailer, I think.
It was in the front of the trailer.
Did you ever try to use it? Was it in working condition?
Oh yeah, it was. I don't know. There was a card in it, an SD card. When I didn't check it for weeks. I didn't. Obviously, I had other things on my mind, but I do remember when I pulled it out and started looking at it. It was like a really good camera. It was way better than I expected, and it had a SD card in it, and there were a few pictures on it. Nothing really recognizable, and as far as I could see, couldn't really tell who it belonged to. So I just took the SD card and the batteries out and threw them away, and I think I just stuck it in my trailer or something. I don't know.
Gotcha. So, and again, I apologize because I only got part of it. Did you go from the Home Depot parking lot to Glen Eyrie Park? Is that
Yep, I think we went straight there. Yep, drove down Denali, turned left on Northern Lights. Right away she said she had to pee.
Mm-hmm.
Plus she was just sitting in the front of my truck. She had a seatbelt on, but she could have, like if she had thought about it, she could have got out really quick before I could have done much about it. So I wanted to get her in the back.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so that was the closest place I could think of Glen Eyrie, and went down there and parked in a corner of the parking lot. There were a couple other cars there. I think there were even people there skiing. And after they left, I let her out so she could pee, and then cleaned out the back seat, put her in the back, and had her. She was cold. I had her covered all up in drop cloths and stuff.
Was she laying down or was she sitting up?
She was laying
Laying
on
down.
the back seat, on the jump seat.
And were her hands still behind her, or did you move them in front of her at some point?
I think they were in front after she was, yeah, once she was in the back, I put them in front. But they weren't tied tight. I had 2 individual cable ties on her wrists, you know, like as tight as you would put handcuffs.
Mhm.
And then between those, I would run other cable ties.
So it's like
But
a
they
chain.
they weren't very tight, just enough that she couldn't try anything crazy. I didn't have her feet tied. She was mostly just tied to the seat belts in the truck with cable ties. And,
So even if she had opened the door, she couldn't have
she couldn't have got out.
Yeah.
I had long cable ties. I think they were 36 inches long, and I had them through the seat belts and wrapped all the way around her, and then cinched down to hold her on the seat. And so yeah, she couldn't.
When you're, I mean, what was the plan from there? I mean, you got this chick, you got her away. You know, now you're in Glen Eyrie Park, and you're kind of home free, right? I mean, you're kind of you've
I
gotten
wasn't
her
in
out of the
any-
bright lights.
I wasn't in any hurry. I mean, I talked to her quite a bit. I was asking her about her debit card, where it was, her cell phone. She kept telling me her cell phone didn't work, and found out that all the stuff was in other places. None of it was in her purse, not even her keys. She'd left her keys in the coffee stand. Or I left her keys. I thought I had grabbed everything and thrown it in her purse, but her cell phone and her keys were on a different counter, and I didn't see them. I think I had a headlamp on.
How did you know to put the dowel in the window? Is it just sitting there in plain view? I mean, that was pretty. You put the dowel in the window of the coffee store.
Well, my whole intention was to make it look like it had closed. The shop had closed somewhat normally.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the dowels were. I don't remember where they were. I think they were fairly obvious. They were there somewhere.
In plain view somewhere,
Yeah.
so you can see them.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, as you were talking to her, you're asking her about the debit card. You're asking her about her cell phone. I mean, what was the plan with those items specifically? I mean, you wanted her cell phone for what?
The plan was exactly what I did.
To
I needed her cell phone to send. At first, I was going to get a prepaid cell,
Mhm.
untraceable, or I've heard they're untraceable. I've never had one. I don't know if they are or not. But at first, I was thinking I didn't want to go back to the coffee stand because she kept saying the alarm was armed now that the door was closed, and I didn't want to break the window to get back in because that would have defeated the whole purpose. So I was going to get a prepaid cell to send the texts, but then I realized that wouldn't be very believable since it wasn't coming from her cell. And that's when I made up my mind to go back to the stand. I figured even if the alarm went off, I would hear it on my scanner and I would be gone before
anybody could
showed
respond.
up. And then when I got there, she told me that she was bluffing me about the alarm and then it wouldn't go off. But that I didn't really believe her at that point. I thought I just was my plan was to go in and out really quick and get her phone. Yeah, so as soon as I got her phone, I started sending text messages and
That was another question I had. Why did you respond to the text messages? One from her boss and one from her boyfriend.
to make it seem more believable.
like she was okay and she was, she was mad
Just
at
that she
him.
was, yeah,
Right.
had a bad day and was pissed off at everybody.
Right.
Plus, I figured from her age that wouldn't be that unusual, or certainly wouldn't be something the police would be interested in hearing about. So I figured even if they were upset about it or out of character, there wasn't anything that was going to be done by much of anybody, at least not for a couple days.
And you were right. That both of the texts were kind of fell right in line with, it was appropriate communication. So how long were you at Glen Eyrie Park, do you think? I mean, half an hour, an hour?
No, only about 20 minutes,
Okay.
15, 20 minutes.
And where did you go from there?
Well, that was before I had gone back to the. That was where we went first. So I mean, I went all kinds of places after that. But I think the first place we went after that was to the parking lot across from Walmart. There was a bank parking lot.
Because you were considering the
I was going to go into Walmart, but I decided I didn't. Yeah, for one thing, I was concerned about leaving her in the truck for too long because she could have started screaming or maybe even broke out, and yeah, so I just decided it was going to take too long and decided that it was lower risk to just get her phone.
Gotcha. And you said that you went several other places, and I know at one point you went to Cars and you bought, I think if I remember correctly, I'm just going off of memory here, a couple of candy bars and a couple of cigars. Was that after you left the parking lot?
Was that
at
after?
Walmart?
I thought I got that stuff before 8 o'clock.
Did it?
You did. It was
You
7:30.
did.
Yeah, that was probably when I was on my way to Home Depot. Yeah, I think it was.
Gotcha. Okay. My mistake.
But, yeah, I mean, I wasn't talking to her. She kept trying to talk to me, and I had to tell her to shut up a few times. Because she was, trying to make friends and stuff. But, I mean, I wasn't being mean to her either. I mean, we were smoking.
Right.
We were smoking my cigars and just kind of driving around while I figured out what to do.
What do you mean?
Well, just I was still listening for. She had made it sound like the alarm was going to go off, and so I was still waiting for the alarm call, and I didn't want to show up there right as the alarm call came in because tutors it would only take them like a minute to get there once it came in. So I was waiting to make sure there wasn't going to be an alarm call that came in, and I guess what was it, like around 10 or something when I ended up going back.
Okay.
And I don't know what I guess I just didn't. I probably got back to the truck at like 8:30. It was like 2.5 hours. Yeah, I don't know. I got gas in there somewhere, and she had to pee again. We went out to Earthquake Park. Sat out there for a while. But then, yeah, after I got the cell phone, I didn't waste any more time driving around town. I think I pretty much sent all the texts and staked out an ATM to go to later.
When you asked her about the ATM card, where the ATM card was, and she gave you her address, right? I heard that.
Yeah.
Okay. When you were actually in the truck and you took the ATM card, where did you find the wallet?
It was in the visor. Right
The
where
wallet
she
was
said it would be
okay.
there. She said it would be there.
The wallet was as well.
Yeah, the
Okay.
whole wallet. I think she gave me several places where it would probably be. I think she said glove box, driver's side door, compartment, or the visor. And I think it was all in the visor.
Why didn't you take her debit card, her ATM card?
She only told me about the one.
Okay.
She said it was a shared account, and that was the only one they had.
Okay. And when the guy came out and kind of, confronted you, or
Yeah, he came out and he said, "Can I help you?"
what did you say?
I just stood there and looked at him to wait to see what he was going to do. I didn't have my gun on me.
But you were.
I had my knife, and I was waiting for him to see if he would like run to me or something, or trying. He seemed like he was uncertain of what to do, and then he just turned and ran into the house, and I figured he was going to call the police.
Gotcha.
So I figured I had a couple minutes, so I just ran to the car and got out of there before he could come back out.
Gotcha. And from there you went back to your shed. Well, you went to the ATM.
No, I was going to go to the ATM, but then I realized I hadn't written down the PIN number she gave me, and I couldn't remember what she had said, so I had to go back to the house and get it from her again.
And why did you check the balance on the ATM? Were you just making sure that the PIN worked?
Yeah.
She wasn't lying?
Well, and to see if there was money on it. But I believed her. I just wanted to
Double check.
make sure it had an active checking account and all that.
Gotcha.
So after that, that's after all that was done. I had already had my truck at the house for a while. Yeah, well, she stayed in the truck for a while. I think I even had it running for quite a while. From about 11, I don't know, no, it was later than that, maybe. I think we maybe got back about 12 or 1. And that's when I started putting my truck back together, and I think I had the truck running and the radio on and stuff in the truck. So she wouldn't get cold, and I don't know how long. It didn't take me long to put the truck back together, but then there were still people out. There were people out walking their dogs, and he was still awake, and I didn't want to take her into the shed right away. So I don't know. It seems like I was doing other stuff to kill time. I was putting tools away and making sure everything was locked up.
Right. Was she still trying to talk to you? Or had she pretty much figured out?
No, I told her. Well, I wasn't in the truck any of that time.
Okay.
I had the drop cloth over her head in case anybody came by and stopped by the house or whatever.
Right.
And I just told her that I didn't want to see her head come up.
Gotcha. And she wasn't trying to make any noise, like banging on
No.
the side of the truck or anything?
No, she was just laying there, and then I don't know what time it was. Maybe around 1 o'clock or 1 or 2. I think that's when the neighborhood had quieted down enough, and I think maybe I was getting ready to go to bed. So that's when I walked her over into the shed, sat her down. Anyway, that's kind of out of order because I didn't do any of the credit card stuff until she was already in the shed. But anyway, so those after all the credit or ATM stuff was done, I got a glass of wine and got her some water, and she was asking me if everything was working out okay, and if I had got a hold of her dad, and if I had the ATM card, and if she was asking me if all this stuff was going as planned, and I said, yeah, it's fine, and unscrewed the rope from the wall and cut the ties off of her hands, not the cable ties on her wrist, but the tie between them.
Mm-hmm.
And had her lay down on the floor on the mat, and took 2 more pieces of rope and put them through the cable ties, and
On her hands, so her hands.
Yeah, 2 separate pieces of rope on her hands, and then I tied knots in the ends of the rope, and I screwed the rope down to the floor of the wall, so her arms were out. And
Did she ever struggle through any of this, or did she just let you do that?
she knew. She knew at that point. She said, "Please don't rape me." And I put my head right up to her ear and I said, "You knew this was coming." And she started to nod and she started to cry a little bit. And I said, "You can make it easier or you can make it harder." And she was still cooperative, but she was really scared at that point. And so after I had her hands screwed down, I don't remember how I tied her feet. I don't think I did much to tie her feet. I think I just took about a 6-foot piece of nylon rope and knotted it around her ankles.
Was she
and then
face up?
screwed it.
I'm sorry, was she face up?
No, she's face down.
Okay. And she didn't try to kick you or anything with her feet or anything
No.
like that? Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
And then after I had her all tied down, I went up and still awake. I went in the house. There was I didn't have her gagged any of this time. I just told her that I had my scanner on, and if any neighbors reported any screaming, I was going to be back in a second, and she'd be sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And she never tried to scream, but I didn't have her gagged or anything at the time she was in the shed. And but I wanted to put a gag in her mouth before I raped her. And so I went into the bedroom, and I had a silk handkerchief. It was purple.
Why did you pick that?
It was something I had left over from a girlfriend a long time ago in Seattle. We used to tie each other up with them. And so I had that handkerchief, and I took it back into the shed and gagged her. But it wasn't like, she could still talk. It wasn't, I don't know.
When you gagged her, did you tie it around her head or
Yeah.
did you just stuff it in her mouth?
No, I tied it. I wound it up, and I didn't stick anything else in her mouth. I don't know. It was mostly just because I wanted to do it, because it didn't really keep her from making any noise.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I just tied it around in her mouth, and
Sorry, the recorder turned off. Just 1 second.
Mine's good.
so I knew she was gonna scream eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a 36-inch cable tie and I put it around her neck and I tightened it up. Not tight, but enough that she could feel that it was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said, all I have to do is pull this, and once I pull it, there's no going back. If you start screaming, or if I don't like the way things are going. And she just kept nodding her head. And I took out a knife. I don't remember which knife. I think it might have been that big black folding one that I had on me when they arrested me. maybe it wasn't that one. I had another knife that you guys aren't going to find, but
Why aren't we going to find it?
it's I burned it in the fireplace, and it's up in Anchorage landfill somewhere.
Okay.
But it wasn't very big. It was had about a 2 or 3 inch blade, and it was one of the freebie knives that Leatherman gives away with like their big multi-tools. I think it was actually a knife, and it was really sharp. That's the knife I had on me most of the night, but I think for some reason I had that big black folding one, and I used that to start to cut off her clothes. I started at her shirt and cut all the way down. She had on a bra, I cut that, and then I cut the back of the arms. It was just a t-shirt, I think, a gray t-shirt. And
Did you have her take her jacket off before now, or was it just
She
draped
never-
over her when?
I don't think she ever had her jacket on.
I thought she put it on in the coffee kiosk. I thought you told her to put it on.
Maybe she did. Yeah, I guess I did tell her to put it on. I remember thinking I needed to get her tied up right away before she got any ideas. So I didn't want to give her time to put it on, but then I can remember thinking if I put the ties on her hands, she won't be able to get her jacket on. It'll just be draped over, and it's going to attract more attention when we're walking down the road. So yeah, I guess I did let her put it on. I told her to put it on. And then I put the cable ties on. But I think by the time she was in the shed, I had heaters going in there. It was hot. And she was, she was cold, or she was nervous or whatever, scared, so she kept asking me to turn the temperature up. So it was hot in there. It was like 80 or 90 degrees probably.
So you don't remember having to cut through the jacket at some point, you think?
I didn't cut the jacket off of her. I took it off of her when she was, I think when I first put her in the shed and changed the ties on her hands, I think I had her take the jacket off because I had a feeling she'd get too hot. Because it was pretty warm in there. So yeah, I took the jacket off and had a big black trash bag in there already, a 30, like a big contractor's bag. And I was throwing everything in there. I threw everything in that. I threw every cable tie I cut, her jacket, anything that touched her, tape, whatever, it all went in that bag, including like the wallet with the credit card. Like once I had the number scratched in the card, I didn't even look at it again. I threw everything in there. The only thing I took out of her purse was the cash. I didn't even take the change. There was a bunch of change and small stuff. I didn't take any of that stuff out. I just threw her purse in that big black bag. And the other cash, I think I might have even taken it in the house right away. I stuck it in my backpack that I was going to take on the trip. And so anyway, she was on the floor, and after I cut off her shirt and her bra, then I took the knife and cut down each of her pant legs. She had on like tight black pants, like spandex pants. And she had on a thong. And
Did you rape her vaginally or anally?
I had some KY out there, and she felt it when I put it on her, and I think she thought I was gonna sodomize her. she started saying, "Oh no, not that," and after that, I just stood up and looked at her for a while. I still had my clothes on, and just watched her for a while. And
Was she still trying to talk to you?
no, she wasn't saying anything. She was shaking a little bit. And then I took my clothes off and put on a condom, and I raped her. And I don't know. It was a while. Probably. I remember the radio was on. I think it took, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 songs. And then right before I finished, I did sodomize her, and she screamed a little bit right then. And right when she screamed, I think I pulled on the cable tie a little bit and told her to shut up. And then after it was over, she was, I don't know. I guess you'd say she was resigned at that point. And still had, I didn't have any clothes on. And she started asking me if I was going to kill her. And I didn't say anything. And then she started saying that she gave really good blowjobs. And I don't know, I probably said something not very nice. And
What did you say? Can you tell me?
I think I said, at this point, that sounds like a good way to get my dick bit off. And she kind of laughed a little bit, and then I put my leather gloves on.
Why did you put leather gloves on and not rubber gloves?
Because it's hard work to strangle somebody with a cable tie. I knew from the minute she walked out of that coffee stand she wasn't going to live.
Had you already decided how you were going to kill her?
No. But after I put my gloves on, I had that little knife, that little Leatherman, the one that was really sharp, had fallen out of my pocket when I was taking off my pants, and it was laying on the floor. This whole time, there wasn't any light in the shed, just my headlamp. And I saw that knife sitting there. And then after I put my gloves on, I jumped on top of her, and I grabbed the cable tie with my left hand, and started pulling up as hard as I could, tightened it all the way down. She never made a sound.
She didn't try and struggle or scream?
She never struggled. She couldn't struggle much. Her legs were screwed down, but her arms were screwed down too. with the rope. So I was straddling her, and I had so much force on the cable tie that her whole, like half of her body was lifted up off the floor. And so yeah, even if she had been struggling, I wouldn't have been able to tell.
How long did it take her to die?
It was taking, I mean, it's hard to tell, but it was taking a while. And I remember thinking, I still have to shower. But I was still, it's going to sound weird, but I was still really into her. And so anyway, I'm not going to tell all that part, but I stabbed her once right below her right shoulder blade in her back
With the Leatherman.
with that little knife.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very deep. I'm not going to go into that, but anyway, I didn't really stab her to make her die faster or anything. It was something else. But
Did you stab her because you were still attracted to her?
No, I'm not going to go into that. I took a piece of rope that was laying there. And at this point, it was probably a couple minutes. And I could tell she still wasn't, there was still life there. And tied it in a square knot to the cable tie. And I took the rope and I hung her off that shelf support. And tied like a half hitch. Had it so her head was, and the front of her body was still lifted off the ground so that there was a lot of pressure on it. And then I finished my wine and put my pants on and went back into the house and took a shower.
You leave the heaters on?
Yep.
Why won't you tell me the rest of it?
Too many people.
And you don't have to do that today. We've done what you're supposed to do.
So after I took a shower, I had to wake up and make sure all the bags were packed, and I think I even fed the dogs. And while I was getting ready, I ran back out to the shed. And I don't know, this is probably 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later. And I untied the rope and pulled her back a little bit so she was on the tarp and on the foam mattress, sleeping bag, everything. And then I took the tarp and I wrapped it all around her. And then opened up the lower cabinets as far as they would go and put her inside and shut the cabinet. Made sure that even if someone opened the cabinet, it would just look like a big tarp in there. And cleaned up a few things laying around the shed. Unplugged all the heaters and the radio. Put the extension cord back by the house. Double locked the door. And went back in and grabbed the bags and called the cab.
Black rod plug in there?
Yep. It was in the cabinet too. I think her phone was in her purse, and I remember, the whole time, anytime I was near the house, I had the battery out of her phone. I would pull the battery out, and then if I had to send another text message, I would I would go somewhere else, some other part of town, and put the battery back in and send it, and then take it back out right away.
Did you ever check her messages?
Yeah, they kept popping up. They were constantly popping up.
I mean, later on, did you dial in or something to check her messages?
Well, yeah, but that was weeks later.
Yeah.
Seems like it was weeks, 2 or 3 weeks later.
How'd you do that?
How do I check her messages?
Yeah. I mean, from her phone or another phone?
No, it was from her phone.
Did you ever check from another phone?
No.
So you flew into Houston that time, and then you drove from Houston to Vegas.
No.
Let me, before you talk about what you did, what was your plan? You were getting on a plane, and her body was in your shed. What were you thinking?
I was thinking it was 20 degrees outside and I didn't have anything to worry about.
But you left the heaters on in the shed.
No.
Oh, okay, you did. All right.
I unplugged. I left them on when I went in to take a shower, but then
I
that
see.
was the last thing I did. I unplugged the extension cord, and it had been on for a while. I remember the extension cord overheated and melted through the ice on the driveway, and it left a line all the way up to the shed. And I rolled it back up and kicked some snow over it. I don't know why, but then the next day after I got to Houston, I remember I called and told her very specifically. I was like, "There's somebody's been hanging around the house. I think they're gonna try and steal my tools. I want you, when you fly down, to park your car right in front of that shed and pull up so the bumper's almost touching the shed so that no one can break into it." And yeah, because I don't know. Because it's entirely feasible that someone might have broken into that shed when we were gone, steal my tools and find that instead.
Would have gotten more than they bargained for.
Yeah, that would have been a lot of explaining to do when I get back to Anchorage.
Were you worried about getting caught?
No.
Why not?
I mean, there is nothing for me to worry about, really. It did occur to me that when I was doing all this, that was why before I did any of this, I kept saying to myself, if there's not another car, you're not doing this. You're not going to do this. If there's not another car, you're not doing this. If you want to do this and there's not another car, you have to go somewhere else and do it. And jack a car or something, because I knew that even with the racks off my truck, all it would take is maybe a couple numbers on the license plate or somebody recognizing me in the truck. So I knew I was taking a risk, but I still wasn't worried about it after it was all done, because partly because it's Anchorage, maybe, I don't know.
What about Anchorage?
I'd been listening to the police scanner a lot recently, and just kind of felt like by the time anybody figured out what had actually happened, the trail would already be cold, and even if they had pictures of my truck, they wouldn't know whose truck it was. They wouldn't have tire tracks. They wouldn't have forensic evidence. They wouldn't have shoe prints. They certainly wouldn't have fingerprints or DNA or anything. So I didn't worry about it. Like I say, I knew there were a lot of those trucks in Anchorage, so I was concerned about it, but I wasn't worried. When did you get that police scanner? I think I got that around Christmas. Oh, I know why. I got that kind of on I don't know, just like a impulse buy, which is unusual for me. But yeah, I saw it online. It was like Radio Shack had an advertisement, and it was on sale for like $300 versus $400 or something. So. And
towards doing something like this?
No, I was actually. There were a lot of things I was thinking of when I bought it, but one of the main things I was thinking of was that I wasn't going to be living up here for much longer. That I was planning to move back down to the States. That's why I wanted it, because I was planning on doing a lot of traveling once I got down to the States, and I like to know what's going on.
You know, I'm going to suggest you guys, you have everything you need. I mean, you know, we agreed to, you know, give you the information about kidnapping, homicide. He's gone through the whole thing. And I think anything further than this, I think is beyond what we agreed to. I mean,
Rich, just a question. We talked a little bit about coming back and the note. And that kind of
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we can skip over the whole Houston trip.
Yeah, just kind of pick up when we got back.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got back on
The 18th.
17th or 18th, and was it morning of the 18th? Or
It was
Sunday
one in the morning.
morning.
It was like
Yeah, that's right. One of the 18th. Yeah. So I had been kind of watching the weather in Anchorage, so I know what to expect when I got back.
To make sure it was cold.
Right. And it was actually starting to warm up a little bit when I got back, so don't think I did anything that first night. I mean, I checked on her. Yeah, because the first, what day of the week was that? Was that 18th? Was
Let me look it up here in just a second.
Sunday, yeah. So I didn't do anything that day. Oh, was it? So I didn't do anything for that weekend.
It was Saturday night because Sunday over to the house and they were at H2O Oasis and she spent Sunday over there.
Sunday day. She
Yeah.
didn't spend Sunday night.
Yeah, Sunday day.
Did she have school Monday?
She did go to school Monday.
Yeah, so I didn't do anything until the day she went to school, I don't think. I couldn't get the body out of the cabinet, at least not easily, because it was frozen. And the doors only opened about 3.5, 4 feet. And so I decided, I mean, I had been planning on doing it anyway, because I was planning to sell that shed this spring. I started taking apart the cabinets and took out all the lights and air conditioner. That air conditioner that was in the garage was in there, and pretty much everything in the cabinets I threw away. Like all the insulation, the lights, all that stuff went in that load to the landfill. And yeah, so I just dismantled the whole thing around her. Basically, she was there on the lower level, and took it all apart and cut it up into firewood, and saved some of the. There was some of the hardware that I think I saved, but everything else I cut up into firewood. And then, let's see, that would have been Monday. Yeah, so I took it all apart on Monday. And then Monday night, I rolled her out of there in the tarp, and she had bled quite a bit from that one stab wound in her back. And so the tarp had actually leaked through into the insulation on the floor of that grow cabinet. And so it took me a while to get all that torn out. I took out the drainage pipes and took out the insulation on the floor and everything else I could see that had blood on it. And all that stuff went into the fireplace. And then I started bagging everything up. I got a bunch of, or I think I did a big double bag, those big contractor bags. I took the sleeping bag she was on, cut it up into about 4 or 5 pieces. It was pretty much soaked with blood. And put that in the bag, put the tarp in the bag. I cut it up in 4 or 5 pieces. And all of her clothes. When I raped her, I had the clothes kind of like wadded up underneath her pelvis. And so they were still there. And so yeah, I cleaned up everything I could, put it in that bag. And a little bit of blood got on the floor of the shed. I don't know how. But pretty paranoid about that. And so I ruled her. Huh?
I'm sorry. Did you try and clean that up? The blower,
Not right away. I think I wiped it up with paper towels and threw the paper towels in that garbage bag just so I wouldn't track it everywhere. And then I rolled her. Onto something else. I think it was a piece of visqueen, like that clear plastic. And to get her off the tarp and the foam mat she was on, I cut that up and put it all in that bag. Started a big fire upstairs, waited till it was about, 1 or 2 a.m. And started burning everything, like plastic, tarp, everything that she had touched. Took her purse out, started going through all that. Almost everything got burned.
What'd you keep?
I kept her makeup, and I kept the cell phone and the credit card. And there was a bunch of change in the bottom of the purse, like quarters or stuff from the coffee stand. I think I just grabbed that and threw it in with all my other change and mixed it in.
So it wasn't floating on the top.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking. Like I say, I was probably overly paranoid, but I was thinking like technically there could be some of her DNA on there.
Did you braid her hair?
Not right away.
What happened next?
Well, this is where you get the abridged version. Let's just say I thawed her out and had a table made in the shed at that point. Before I built the table, I had taken a really big piece of plastic, probably, I don't know, like 15 by 20, and had it stapled all the way up the walls and all the way across the floor. Before I did that, she was out of the shed at that time. I had everything cleared out of it. I had a big bucket of hot water with a lot of bleach in it, and I had a grout sponge. And I cleaned up, like wiped everything down, like especially around where there had been blood on the floor. And then after I did that, I put the visqueen up, or plastic up the walls, stapled it up. And then I built the table. And then I brought her back in.
From where?
And tied ropes to her arms at that point. And did the same thing pretty much. Had some screws, tied knots in the rope, screwed to the wall. So her arms were up above her head, like in the picture.
After you thawed her out, was she not rigid?
Nope. No, she was very floppy.
What'd you do?
Well, I wouldn't tell you this part except you're going to find out anyway, so.
Why wouldn't you tell us?
I told you this stuff is private. There's too many people in here. But I had sex with her corpse. And, she was warm. And by then it was getting late in the morning. And I remember I guess I lost track of time. He came out and knocked on the door of the shed. And I said, "Oh, yeah, go back inside, eat your breakfast." And, because she was, at that point, anytime I opened the door, she was like right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, anytime I came in and out of the shed, I would like kind of slip out without opening the door very much. And so yeah, I just left her there after that. Left her there, went inside. Boy, after that, that would have been what did we say, the 19th? Monday was the 19th, so that would have made it the 20th. Next Tuesday, Tuesday, that would have been the 20th.
Yeah.
Oh, so Tuesday would have been the 21st. So he was getting back the next day. So I remember thinking I had a lot to do and hadn't really figured out how I was going to pull it off. So that next night, Tuesday night, most of Tuesday, I was out trying to get the stuff together that I was going to need. I was looking for newspapers. I was looking for a Polaroid camera, which is incredibly hard to find nowadays. And bought some paper, computer paper. Went to a bunch of thrift stores. I was looking for a typewriter. Don't remember exactly how much of that. I think maybe that first day, Tuesday, I think I had found the typewriter. I think I had found I had the paper. I couldn't find Polaroid cameras anywhere. I finally did a search online and found them at Target, but by then I was already out of school, so I ran down to Target with her and just ran in the store. And grabbed that, and they didn't have any film for the Polaroid camera I got there, so I went back to the house and went online, and supposedly they had it up in Wasilla. By this time, I was realizing that I wasn't going to get everything done by the time I got back. And so I was just trying to get everything together.
Did you go to Wasilla and get the film?
I went that night.
Yeah, the 21st. The night before.
Yep. Yeah, I waited till I was asleep. Made sure she had her cell phone there by her bed, and I took off. Went up to Wasilla and Target in Wasilla. Went into their parking lot. There was nobody there. I thought they were closed, but they were open. And I went in and got a pack of the film. And went out and got into the car and decided since I was up there I was going to go look for the lake. But it was really dark and I drove, I don't know, I'd read the map wrong or something because I ended up way up on the other side of Palmer and didn't realize that it was right there by the highway. So I didn't actually find the lake that night. I was mostly just driving around.
Did you try to find it?
I wasn't trying that hard. I was just looking for the sign. I was thinking that if I saw the sign, I was going to stop and just walk down to it and take a look around and see how many people had been using it.
Did you use your phone or anything to try to get on the internet to try to find the lake?
I may have, yeah. Now that you mention it.
You did 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard to read MapQuest on that little screen. Yeah, no, I wasn't. I don't know. I was mostly just thinking about stuff. I ended up way up on the other side of Palmer and kind of lost track of time. And then I just decided it was getting too late and I needed to get back. So the roads were really bad. I remember that there was black ice that day. So on the way up, it wasn't too bad because of all the rush hour traffic that cleared it off. But on the way back, I don't think I could go above like 40 or 45. It was slick. And that was in his car. And also on that day, earlier that day, I had been in Fred Meyer's looking for a camera. And that's where I got that sled, big sled. I think I also, I don't know, I could be wrong on my dates on that stuff. Maybe I didn't get some of it till after back, but it seems like I used her car to pick it up. I used her car to pick up the sled, and there's some, I got 2 of those big totes from Home Depot. And it seems like I could use her car to pick those up too. Anyway, I had pretty much all the stuff then. Can't remember when I got the typewriter. It seems like that was the last thing I was trying to find. I got back. And picked her up from the airport, I think. Don't remember what time she went. It seems like it was late or something. And yeah, after that it was business as usual for a couple days. I had some work stuff to do, and I was trying to work around schedule. I don't remember if she went back to work right away or not. I just remember that I wasn't going to do anything in the shed until she was either at work or off somewhere with her friends at night, because sometimes when I'm out there working, she'll come out to pound on the door. Ever since she found my little grow operation, she yeah, things weren't so good between us after that. So yeah, I was waiting for her to get back into her schedule, and I think remember. It seems like I did this when she was still gone, but yeah. So anyway, irrelevant. I went into Walmart at some point and bought a bunch more makeup similar to the colors that she had in her purse. And got some fishing line. Bought some needles at Walmart.
Newspaper?
The newspaper I ended up finding in the dumpster behind cars. They have a big recycling dumpster, and I found a whole stack of papers in chronological order from about the 6th to the whenever I got back, 19th or 20th or something.
Why did you pick 13?
Because I wasn't in Anchorage on the 13th. And yeah, so once I had all that stuff, I really can't remember. It seems like it was gone. Maybe she was out of town with friends or something. But I know it took me all night to do it.
To do what?
All night to get the makeup done. And she was still on the table, but you know, obviously she didn't look as good as when I first thought her out. So yeah, I had a lot of work to do, and probably, I don't know, 2-3 hours I worked on her, doing the makeup and trying to figure out how I was going to position things, trying to make it look like she was still alive. And the biggest problem I had was with her face. I could get the makeup to work, but you know, her face was slack, so by then it was already getting to be morning, it seems like. And, so that's when I kind of gave up on like the mouth and stuff. I just decided to tape it. And I taped it so that it looked like her face had some texture to it, I guess. And then I was still having problems with her eyes, or her forehead, you know, because there was no expression. And tried super glue, that didn't work. And so I took the needles that I had a big curved needle, I forget what they call it, but and then I had that 10-pound test fishing line, and I took the needle and went down through her brow, like right between her eyebrows, down up along her nose cartilage under the skin, and then came out and then went back up and along the same path and did it again, and then pulled it tight to make it look like she was squeezing her eyes shut. And then I took a test picture just to kind of see what it was going to look like, and I think I put a little more makeup on after that. I already had her hair braided at that point. And
When did you put the makeup on?
the makeup I used, like what was left over,
No, I mean, where on her?
Base your body.
everywhere. I had to put foundation. Like every part you see in that picture has foundation on it, 2 or 3 different kinds.
Why did you do that?
Well, she didn't look good. I mean, her skin, you could start to see the blood under the skin and some bruising. And, I mean, she was still in good shape, but, she definitely didn't look alive. And so, yeah, it took me a long time. I think I used 2 or 3 tubes of foundation, and then after that I had to go over it with a couple other colors in different areas, because I mean at first it just looked like she was painted. I had to add in some red and I don't know, different stuff, different places. It was a while. It was like, I don't know, between 3 and 5 hours, and then had like the face makeup, that was took a while too, and then I took, I don't know, it took me about, it was hard to take the picture because the Polaroid I had only gives a printout of about 2 by 2.5 inches or something, and so I think I took about 5 or 6 pictures before I finally had one that only showed what I wanted.
Did you cut the corner off?
Yeah. Well, I cut the edges off the whole photograph. At first I was thinking, give them the Polaroid and have the notes separate. And then I decided that it would be harder for you to figure out if I scanned the picture with a printer, not through the computer, but just with the scanner onto the paper. That way you probably wouldn't know for sure that it was a Polaroid. And so yeah, that's what I did. And then after I remember when I decided to do it that way, I was thinking, well, hell, if I was going to do this, I could have easier ways I could have done it rather than running all over town looking for a Polaroid. But yeah, so I just decided to do it that way.
Did you cut the corner off because it showed the mark on your arm?
Well, it wasn't so much the brand that was showing, but I have some moles on my arm, and I was, I looked at it pretty carefully, and I guess I was just thinking that it might show something. I was thinking to keep the minimum amount of my arm in there and still get the message across. Yeah, so then once I had all the pictures, I saved out the best one, and then everything except for her went into another garbage bag. There was a lot of other stuff out there. There was like a pillow that I had under her at first. All that stuff I put in the garbage bag, and I remember I was home for sure at that point because I waited until it was really late one night and then burned all that stuff, like all the makeup, and I even used some of the makeup, but that's all gone. Like it was in this old case she had out in the garage, and she never uses it, so I knew she wouldn't miss it, so I just used it, and then once I was done with it, I threw it all away. Like everything that was in that shed, that except for her and the table, and she was still on the table, she was still tied to the wall, but everything else that was out there went into that bag and got burned. And then
Did it get burned at the house?
yeah.
Why did you braid her hair?
Make it more believable, I guess. Well, no, there is more to it, but yeah, that was the main thing.
Why did you go to all the trouble to do this? It was a lot of work. Why did you?
Well, put it this way. I mean, it's obvious why I did it. I did it. The bottom line was to get money out of it. But at the same time, not like I didn't want to do it.
Why $30,000?
I was following the story when I was in New Orleans on either my computer or the hotel computer, I don't remember. And I was amazed at how much money suddenly became involved. But the plan had always been, it was always the plan. That's why I had the debit card, that's why I got the number, that's why I had her phone. That's why that's the only things I kept.
Did you need money at this time for some reason?
No. No, if I was out, I'd have work right now.
So why did you go for the money? Why did you want the money?
Because I was bored with my work.
You said that you were following the story while you were in New Orleans. What did you think of it? What did you think of his press release?
Yeah, why are we getting into why? I mean, we went over the what. You know, I just don't know what else you need. He's covered the ransom note. I mean, everything you need. I don't want to spend here all night talking about why. And I don't think it's relevant to what we agreed to.
Well, I mean, I was following the story. You ask about the money. That's why I mentioned that I was following the story. That's how the $30,000 idea came up. I always knew that I was going to put something about money in the ransom note. Partly because I was curious to see if it would happen. I was curious to see what would happen.
Wasn't that risky to ask for money on a debit card? Didn't you think that was kind of risky?
I didn't think so.
You didn't think you would get traced from your ATM transactions?
No.
How are you going to determine if anybody put money in the account anyway?
Well, I wrote the ransom note. He was already home. Actually, there were already, I think the day I wrote it, I want to say it was at work or something. It seems like she had friends, either was coming into town and he was already there somewhere or something. I remember that there was a lot going on, but there was one day that there was nobody around at the house, and I brought the typewriter into the house, and didn't take me that long. I opened that pack of computer paper I got and put in the typewriter, and the thing worked fine, and typed up one draft of the ransom note, stuck it in the printer feed tray, hit copy with the picture in there. As soon as I had done that, I pulled the I had gloves on the whole time. I had latex gloves on the whole time I was typing it, and I never touched the paper or anything.
Seems like you purposely misspelled some stuff in the ransom note.
I didn't. No, I was just I wasn't really that concerned about the wording of it. I had an idea, like the message I wanted to get across, but.
What was with the desert? You said she escaped on tutor, and that was true. Almost escaped on tutor. That was true, right? And then you said, and once in the desert.
That was calculation that I had in my head from the time the picture was taken to the time the ransom note was given was about 10 days, and I guess I was thinking make it sound as if she had been sold as a sex slave, maybe somewhere in Mexico. It's about how long it would take to drive there on the 13th and get back to Anchorage if you were driving.
So you just assumed that there would be money in the account when you checked the first time on the 28th?
Yeah. No, I mean, I was...
Because you knew there was only $5 in it.
$5.
You checked it the night you got the car, and you knew there weren't.
No, there was only like 94 cents in it
Right.
the night I checked it.
So, what made you think there was going to be money in it on the 28th?
Because you'd had the ransom note for... I knew... Oh, that was a crazy night. Alright, so after I wrote the ransom note and had it in the bag, I had the bag stashed somewhere. I had it double bagged in 2 Ziploc bags. The one on the inside I had never touched. Let's see, how did that work? Alright, so the morning that you got the text about the ransom note, really early in the morning, I got up before, like way before I normally do, maybe 6 or 7 o'clock, and drove out to Connors Park and put it under that picture with the push pin. And then I went directly back to the house, and the rest of the day was pretty much business as usual. I think that was the date came in. I know that what happened was I was out with friends that night. There were a bunch of people out for the Fur-Rondi thing. I told them I didn't want to go. And so I was designated driver that night. I was thinking that was kind of perfect because I was going to be all over town anyway. So I went. They were at Humpy's. Then I was going to wait a couple days before sending the text just to make sure all my tracks were walked over out at Connors Park, but I figured it's a busy park, so I figured by that evening it would be fine. And
You weren't afraid somebody was going to find it kind of incidentally, just to kind of...
well, that I was, but I didn't want to send in the text too soon because I had used this car to plan it, and it wasn't snowing much that day, so I knew that there were probably... I knew there were going to be her tire tracks. I wasn't worried about my shoe prints because I threw those shoes away. But yeah, I was worried someone might find it. I was worried it might fall out or something. So I wanted to send the text pretty soon. And then it just worked out that night I ended up not drinking or anything with anybody. And they were at Humpy's. And so... Or no, they didn't. I don't know. I don't remember where they started out. I remember it was funny the way it worked out, though, because I dropped them off somewhere. And they were out partying for a while. And, how did this work? Oh, I know what happened. I drove out all the way to the east side to his friend's house, or to our friend's house over there. I dropped him off because he didn't have a car while he was here. I dropped him off. First stopped in, I think we were in the car. We stopped at the cars right there on Boniface and DeBar, and he went in and got a case of beer, and I had the cell phone on me. And so the whole time I was dropping him off, I was trying to think of a good place to send the text from. And so I dropped him off at his friend's house and went back out to the car's parking lot, went to one of the back corners and turned her phone on and sent the text. Looked at a few of the messages, sent the text, and then took the phone battery out right away and headed home.
Why did you send the text to her boyfriend's number? Why not her father's number, since her father was the one that kind of had control of the money?
I didn't think that part through very well, because after the first time I checked the account, I was thinking that they probably never even got the text. I was thinking it was probably intercepted by the police, because the police probably had that phone. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted everybody who knew her to know about the ransom demand. I didn't want it to be in the police's hands. So, yeah, I didn't think, I was originally thinking when I sent the text, I was going to send a group text to every one of her contacts, the same message. But, I don't know, there were a lot of people out and around the car when I was texting, and I was paranoid, didn't want to be there for too long, so I just sent it to that one number and figured I'd wait and see what happened. So I turned it off and headed home, and I was home for, I don't remember what I was doing. I was home for a while, and got curious, and decided to go out for a little drive and see what was happening. And so I headed down Wisconsin Street to Spenard, and drove out to Spenard and drove past Connors Park, and I knew right away that I wasn't sure at that point that the police had intercepted the message, but I had an idea just because of it looked super hush-hush. There was like a big crime scene van there, and there was a couple patrol cars, but there were no lights, and there was no, I knew right away that the message had got through. I didn't slow down or stop or anything. I just kept driving down whatever road that is. I guess it turns to Jewel Lake or whatever. And when I got down to Raspberry Road, I called, told her that I was that I hadn't been drinking or anything, and that asked her if she needed a ride. And yeah, and then there was a party going on over at the house, I guess. They were playing poker or something. So yeah, then I went and picked up. Oh, and her friend was with her. Was there, and so I picked them up at Humpy's and gave them a ride over to his house. So I think that's, yeah. And then called a cab, and I called him, told him to cancel his cab because I was going to give him a ride back to our place because he was spending the night there. And yeah, that was pretty much it. After that, I just waited. I wasn't going to check the account right away because I still, she was still out in the shed. And my thought was that I should definitely get rid of some more evidence before I get anything else. And so I don't remember. Yeah, I mean, I already told you about all this part, like what happens after this. There was she was out in the shed, and she was starting to smell a little bit. So I wanted to keep her I didn't want to do it right then. That's why I got the 2 totes. I was thinking I could put her out in the backyard and bury her in the snowbank. And finish it up later, but then I just decided it was better just to do it and like get it done and figure out some excuse as to what I was doing for 3 days. And yeah, so I took her off, rolled her off the table, and took the table apart, cut up the plywood that it was made out of, and burned that, and had a big rolling tote. It wasn't very deep, about 5 or 6 inches deep, and put her in that. And that's what I cut her up in.
What did you use to cut her up?
Did you find the knife? The yellow. That's mostly what I used. I took the wire. I already had the wire. I used the wire like a tourniquet to keep the blood to a minimum, and wrapped it around both sides of everywhere where I planned to cut. And had everything all wired up, and then made the cuts. Only took me a few minutes. And triple bagged everything. And there wasn't really a mess in the shed at all. I remember thinking that I was going to have to burn the tote that I cut her up in and all the visqueen and everything, but then I just decided that even if someone found it at the landfill, it didn't really look like anything but trash. So I took all that stuff, and I had some big clear 55 gallon. They were really big trash bags that I got at Home Depot, and I stuffed, triple bagged her in black plastic garbage bags, 2 different bundles, and put her in the corner of the shed. And then started tearing down all the visqueen, tore down all the visqueen, stuffed it in the big clear bag, and then had a bunch of other stuff that I had used to thaw her out in the garage that I didn't think looked that bad, so I decided just to throw that stuff away too. So I bagged all that stuff up and put it all out in the trailer. And then she sat out there for a few days, 2 or 3 days. And that was when he was staying with us. And yeah, I think at that point, because while I was there, I was actually building the ice hut in the garage. I had it all set up.
What was the? Because I couldn't hear that. Like, tell me about. Was it like a wooden structure, or what was it?
I had bought a tarp at Walmart. It was brown on one side and silver on the other. I think it was. It was a 9x12 tarp. And the tent poles were from a tent that we had out in the shed. An old, it was a big tent, like a 5 or 6 person tent. And I just designed the ice hut around the size of the tarp and the height of the poles. And I just made the wooden pieces to hold it all together. And so when I took everything out to the lake, all I had to have to put it together was my cordless drill. Had a big 1-inch bit in it to drill holes into the ice for the legs, and I had a Phillips bit to screw on a couple of cross braces for the roof portion. And once I had the frame up, it only took me, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes to put the tarp on it. And the tarp was just held on with like staples up top, and then bungee cord at the bottom, and a couple other bungee cords to hold the roof part on. And yeah, once I had all the ice fishing stuff set up, I had the weights cut off. I had to cut them apart with the angle grinder. They had like a stainless cable that holds them together. And cut those up into the number of pieces that I thought I would need. And loaded all that stuff in the tote. Loaded in the wooden parts of the ice fishing hut. And I think I went up to the lake the first time the day after I left. I remember I was in the office and I was looking at lakes. He works for Fish and Game, so I was actually asking him about lakes around the area because I still hadn't decided for sure. I didn't really want to do the Matanuska Lake because it was so small. I wanted to do a really big lake. But they were all quite a ways further north, and I knew I was going to have to I didn't want to take everything up in one trip because I knew I couldn't get it all out on the lake in one trip, and I didn't want to leave it in my truck. So I just decided on Matanuska Lake because I knew I was going to have to go up there 3 times.
Why 3 times? Once for the tent and
The
twice.
first time I had the lead weights and a snow shovel and my chainsaw, some of the wooden pieces for the ice hut, and had that big steel bar, and I think I had my fishing stuff with me that day too, just for appearances, but I wasn't planning on fishing the first day. I went up pretty late. It was pretty late in the day the first day I went up because I knew it wasn't going to take very long. And the chainsaw just would not it kept dying on it. It took me forever to cut the hole. And I finally just finished it with the bar. And
What were the dimensions of the hole, if you could guess?
it was about 13 by 20. I made it big enough that, well, I knew what size it had to be, but I also was making it big enough because I didn't know how thick the ice was.
How thick was it?
It was about 20 inches thick when I was there. But in the past, I've gone ice fishing and the ice has been 4 or 5 feet thick, so I was thinking I had to make it big enough that I could fit the whole chainsaw down inside the hole to keep cutting because the chainsaw only has a 16-inch bar. Unfortunately, it didn't. I didn't have to go through that much ice. But yeah. So once the hole was cut, it was actually pretty easy considering how bad the chainsaw was running. There was another guy fishing out there. He kept looking at me kind of funny. And,
Why do you think? Because it was...
well, he had an ice drill right there,
Ah.
so I don't know. It's not a very common way to go ice fishing. Most people just have the auger, the
Yeah.
ice augers. So I think he was.
You are in the valley, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
I don't know.
When you were cutting a hole, did you have to cut it into sections and pull the ice out, or did you just do it all at once?
I just cut out the whole square, and then I took once I had the perimeter of the hole cut out, that big heavy bar, I just hit it like once or twice in the middle, and it started coming out in big chunks. So I bottomed out the first cuts I made around it, and then cut it a few more times. Stuck the chainsaw down in there and cut a few more.
So you got some chunks outside, and the rest pushed under, or?
No, I think I got them all out.
I don't know for sure though, because once I found out, I think the chainsaw, I went to do the second cuts, and I think the chainsaw went through. So once the chainsaw went through, the hole filled up with water. So I scrapped the chainsaw and just went to the bar, and it only took me, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes to finish the bowl with the bar. And then once I had the ice knocked out, I used that big shovel to scoop out all the chunks of ice, and shoveled off the whole area down to the ice, and took the weights out of the totes and buried them under the snow piles, and took some twine. I think I had about 100 feet of twine, that neon stuff that was in there, and I tied 2 of the weights to that and checked to see how deep the water was. It was supposed to be like 60 to 80 feet deep, but I think it ended up only being about 40 feet deep. But I figured that was deep enough, so after I checked that, I just packed everything back up and covered the hole, buried it with snow, and then loaded the sled back up and left. And I had a parent-teacher conference that day. Didn't make it. I had to schedule it for the next day.
Did you call the school to let them know you were going to be late? Or couldn't
Yeah,
you?
I think I called them. I didn't have my phone battery in for the whole time I was up at the lake, but I think once I got to Eagle River that first day, I put my phone battery back in and called her teacher to let him know that I got the message, but that I wasn't going to make it in time. And he said that was no problem, that I could reschedule for the next day. So the next day I left earlier and took the first package up, and then just kind of guesstimated the time and left. I don't know what time I left, maybe 2 o'clock. Made it back to Anchorage to do the teacher conference thing. And
You said that there might have been some blood on the ice. What was that from if you had triple bagged?
well, when she was triple bagged, and I had baling wire wrapped around the bags to keep them closed. So when I was getting ready to put the weights on, I took my knife, I think it was that big black folding one, and I cut open the bags. They were laid flat on the ice inside the ice hut. I cut open the bag all the way down and kind of laid it out. I was trying to keep everything as much in the bag as I could, so I would grab the weights and wire it to each piece, and then I would drop it into the hole. But it wasn't so much a problem with the first day, because it was all the smaller pieces. But the next day, when I did the torso, there was quite a bit of blood in the bags, and it was pretty heavy once I had the weights on it. So when I went to drop it in the hole, I kind of fell a little bit, and then a bunch of water out of the hole splashed up all around. So there was, it looked like blood.
Right, like wet everything that was frozen, kind of thing. Or?
Yeah, it just spread out through the whole inside of the ice shack.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't obviously blood, but it definitely wasn't clear water either.
Right.
You could tell that it had something in it. So I think I tried to shovel most of that up and buried it in a snowbank nearby, and then loaded, each day with the bags that I had used. I took them back to the house and burned them right away.
Did you have a fire out there at all at the lake?
Yeah.
What'd you burn out there?
Scraps from my business. Firewood.
Just for heat.
Yeah.
I think you told us you had a piece of plywood that you used to
Yeah.
did you burn that out?
I didn't burn it out there. I don't think. No, I didn't. Because it was a big piece of plywood. It was about 16 by 30 or something like that. It was big enough to cover the hole all the way around. And I know on my way back the last day I put it underneath the tote on the bottom of the sled. So if it wasn't there, then that means I cut it up with the skill saw in the backyard and burned it in the fireplace.
Is there a reason you did this over 2 days as opposed to just one?
Yeah, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to do it in one, but I didn't want to leave half of her in the truck while I was down on the lake. And I didn't want to be seen making trips back and forth to the ice hut because there were houses there and stuff. So, yeah. I actually thought about leaving the ice hut thing set up for the first day, but I didn't want people to get curious and walk out there and check it out, so I just decided to take it down and set it up again the next day.
Was there any reason, any method to the order that you took the body parts out? You said the first day you took the smaller parts out, and the second day was the torso. Just to kind of see how it went with the smaller stuff before you took the torso out?
No, because the torso was quite a bit heavier and bigger, and so the first day, I think I had some extra firewood, a few extra things that I was thinking I'd leave out there, and then I'd have more room the next day. That's why I did it that way.
And you said the first day you took the smaller pieces out. Just the 4 limbs? Did you cut the 4 limbs into any pieces, or was it 4 intact
No.
limbs?
Well, it was her arms were bound together into one bundle.
Mm-hmm.
The legs were separate, and her head was separate. So it was 4 pieces.
And then one day you went to the parent-teacher conference after you had dumped part of her body.
Yeah, that was the first day.
How did you stay calm enough to go and do that?
I didn't really think about it. I mean, the first day, like I say, dumping the body took me about 5 or 10 minutes once the ice shack was set up. I did that first thing and rolled all the bags up and kind of stuffed them in the tote at the bottom in case Fish and Game came out to check on me or whatever. And then once I had done that, I set up my chair and started a fire and started fishing. And I fished out there for, I don't know, quite a while, 2 or 3 hours the first day maybe.
And then the second day when you had the student?
No, that was that day, the first day. The first day, the day I missed it, was the day I went to cut the hole, I think. I don't know. That seems what it was, like what it was.
At the conference, or is it just the parent and the teacher?
No, she was at Taekwondo. She goes to Taekwondo every day after, well, pretty much every day after school. And it was actually for her, it wasn't even really a parent-teacher conference. It was a parent-teacher conference I had done over the phone with her teacher, because it was scheduled for the 15th, but I didn't get back. I had to change my plane tickets, so I didn't get back until the 18th, and so our teacher and I just talked on the phone. We did the conference over the phone. The meeting that I had was with the Ignite teacher that we're putting in a fast track program of some sort at the school.
Like a gifted program. Right?
Yeah, so they wanted to talk to me about that and just let me know what it was about. And yeah, it was fun.
Did anybody talk to you
Nope. No, with the exception of that first day when I cut the hole, I didn't see anybody. I saw it was maybe the first, I don't remember, first day or second day when I took the body out. I remember I came back up the hill after I was done fishing, and on one of those days there was a car there in the parking lot with my truck, but I could tell by the tracks that they had just gone like cross-country skiing, it looked like, on the trail there. I think they had a dog with them or something, and so yeah, they never even came down by the lake. They probably didn't even see me on the lake. They went on the trail that looked like it kind of ran parallel to the Glen Highway or something.
The fishing, I mean, was that to catch fish so you can cover your behavior, or was there another reason for fishing?
No, I just wanted to go fishing. I mean, it sounds weird, but that's the first.
Well, that's what I mean, you sound like you were very calm, and you were able to fish and then go to meet with the teacher and...
Yeah. No, I was once. No, I was more calm then than I had been the whole time, because especially on the last day I went fishing, because at that point there was virtually nothing left. It was, it was pretty much done, and had to get back to work anyway, so went and talked to some clients and stuff, and
What'd you do with the fish that you caught?
had them for dinner.
You guys done? Are you done? I mean, I'm just...
Well, there's a lot more. I understand what you're saying, Rich. There's a lot more we'd like to know. We agree.
Well,
with
that
you.
was pretty much it. I mean, after that was done, that was, what was that? What did I say? 20? No, that was after, I guess, the note. So by then it was the 28th, or no, 28th was the first day I used the card. So.
And that was just a random.
27th.
You just decided to use it that day. You never knew there was going to be money in it.
Well, I was going to check. I figured it had been 4 days. So if there was going to be money in it, it would be in there. And
Did you ever try to reach out to ever try to reach out to anybody else in the search team or anything like that, in regards to the ransom note, or any kind of communication to the Koenig family at all?
with the exception of that text message, no.
Okay.
What about the blogs and what you say?
I think I posted maybe 1 or 2 comments on a ADN article, but I mean, I used to post on there all the time, but I don't.
Were they the ones that were on? They would think it was like KTUU or KT. One of the KTVA blog.
Was it? I don't remember. I thought it was on ADN.
Do you remember what you said?
I think the only comment I remember making was that they didn't have any information up on Crime Stoppers, and that the FBI hadn't added her to the missing persons, like National Missing Persons database. So.
Do you see this in quotes right here? Nothing surprises me anymore. You see that?
Yeah,
Right here. Is that? Did you write that?
doesn't look familiar.
Those words are not yours.
The whole thing?
Right here.
I don't think he said that. It doesn't even sound like something I would write. I don't know. The whole. I don't know. Maybe I did. I don't remember. What time of day was it posted? That might shed some light on it.
This was March 3rd, 2:19 a.m. And it was
2:19 a.m. Yeah, that's possibly me.
and it was submitted by Israel.
Well, I guess it's me then.
And then, can you open that door?
Yeah.
Somebody fixed it for us.
Yeah.
And then there was a second post by Israel dated March 5th, 6:45 a.m.
What did I respond? What was the article that I was
The
responding?
one on March 5th, it was a story captioned, "New Reward in Koenig Disappearance Case." And then the post reads, "I really don't know what to say. This is beyond ridiculous," and that's what happens when you have the public doing all work in making this more stupid or worse than they are already.
Weird. Do not recall that at all. Sure it's not by another Israel?
What do you think?
That's what I think. Doesn't sound like something I would write.
Gee.
You said, and I missed it, but what was the color of the trash bags that they took out to the
Well, there was one that was clear. It had the visqueen in it, the plastic. The rest were just the big black contractor's bags. And most of them had. There wasn't really much in there related to this whole thing. Well, there was the typewriter, but almost everything was burned. The ashes are in one of the bags with some other stuff that's not really relevant.
I do have one more question, and if it doesn't pertain to the Koenig investigation specifically, you would just tell me, yes or no. The trip to Cleburne and getting stuck in the mud, does that have anything to do with the Samantha Koenig investigation?
I'm not gonna say anything about that.
Did you save anything from Samantha?
Like a souvenir.
None of her belongings.
Well, aside from the ATM card and her phone. The phone I was actually going to throw away or burn until the first time I checked the account and saw that there was only $5,000 in it. Then I kind of had a new plan and I decided to take the phone with me to Texas.
Were you going to ask for more money?
I was going to send a group text to everyone in her contact list and to say it was like a last warning and that the price had gone up by $10,000 and it was the last they were going to hear from me. And then I was going to burn the phone.
What were you using the money for?
I didn't really get out that much money. I don't remember how much, but
About $2,500.
yeah. I honestly like the whole. I did use it a couple times in Anchorage. Pulled out money at. See, the first time I checked it, I was going to use it. I was going to pull out money at that bank, but somebody pulled up behind me, and they were. I assume they were waiting to use the ATM. They had their headlights right on me, so I kind of got annoyed, and I had only checked the balance. I think I had tried. I was also annoyed that it would only let me take out $500 because I don't know. So I just walked away after I checked the balance at that bank. I just walked away because there were people sitting right there. And then was it 2 transactions that night?
One just before midnight and one just after midnight.
One at well, anyway, that was my thinking. I was it was going to get out the money before and after. I know the first time I got it out was Denali, I think, down on Northern Lights, or Minnesota, and the second time I actually got money out with it was at Alaska USA, but I don't remember if it was the same day or not, or same time.
Any specific reason why you chose those ATMs?
No, I was gonna. I mean, eventually, I was planning to use pretty much all the ATMs in town. So I was just spreading things around, I guess.
What did you do with the Compass card?
Burned it.
Is there anything else you want to tell us?
No, that's pretty much the whole thing.
You made reference to some other things that you weren't going to tell.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into all of that stuff.
Is that something you want to talk about a different time?
I don't know that. I mean, I will, but it's not. Like I say, it's on my terms, and it's not really. It's just more detail of what you already have. Everything I've told you are things that you would have found out, or the ME would have found out, or whatever. She hasn't been down there that long, so.
Without telling me any details, are there other things that you'd like to tell us?
You know, Kevin, we went over this.
No, that's it. That's the whole story.
Do you have any questions for us?
No.
It is 17:14.